So Xbox is finally getting out of the business. Not the gaming business, but the movie and TV business. It's Sunday, so let's get sensational. I'm Mike, and I'm back to talk about the gaming news. But maybe you're not in the mood for a news video today and you want to rent or buy a movie on, I don't know, let's say your Xbox through Microsoft's lovely movie and TV store. Well, that's no longer a possibility. So on July 18th, Microsoft announced they're no longer offering the ability to purchase or rent movies or TV shows through any of their platforms, including the Windows Store and on Xbox. Microsoft did say that anyone who purchased content previously will still have access to that content, but no new purchases can be made after this point. Now, they're not given the option to transfer the licenses to another app, but they did mention that you can link it to Movies Anywhere, which is basically an aggregator for digital licenses, so it allows you to watch purchased content from other providers in one place. Now, they didn't say why they just decided to randomly end the service, but if I had to guess, it probably just wasn't popular enough. It was probably costing them a lot to license content for the store, and if people weren't buying enough of it, then they're probably losing money on it. Also, when they started the store back in 2012, there weren't quite as many competing stores in the space, but now there are like 500 streaming services, including free ones like Tubi, and a bunch of other services where you can buy and rent movies. So it makes sense for them to just leave that space. I just didn't think it would happen randomly on a Friday with no prior announcement. But one thing Microsoft did announce ahead of time is their partnership with ASUS for the ROG Xbox Ally. Ooh, that name. So Xbox and ASUS has said their handheld is coming holiday this year, but we still have no official release date or pricing announced for it. Well, due to a leak from the ASUS store, we have an idea of where the prices may land. So the ASUS store in Spain briefly had pricing listed for the ROG Xbox Ally and the Ally X. They had the price of the base Ally listed at 599 euros and the X listed at 899 euros. So when translated to USD, it's basically 700 for the regular version and 1,050 for the X. Of course, the pricing was quickly removed as it was obviously posted in error. And a lot of the times, prices for electronics aren't exactly the same for different regions, but this is probably around what they'll cost based on the current pricing of ASUS's devices. I mentioned before that the current ROG Ally X is $1,000 and the regular Ally is around $700, so this pricing makes sense from where they're at currently. A part of me was hoping that since they're partnering with Microsoft and making this an Xbox branded device, that they would try to come in lower price wise to appeal to more people, but it looks like that may not be the case. As the PC Gamer article mentions, the chip in the base ROG Xbox Ally isn't particularly powerful. It's most likely going to be similar to a Steam Deck, which you can get for around $400. It does have other features that the Steam Deck doesn't, like a high and variable refresh rate screen and the ability to connect an eGPU, which the Steam Deck doesn't officially have. There are ways, I'm not going to talk about it. But if the base model is $700 for similar performance to a Steam Deck, that's going to be a tough sell. But we're over halfway through the year and this thing is supposed to launch around holiday time, so we should find out about the official pricing soon. Hopefully. But if you do decide to pick up a handheld this holiday and it's not an Xbox, maybe just stick with the ones that don't come with preloaded games, especially if you live in Italy. So YouTube channel Once Were Nerd is facing some legal trouble for reviewing handhelds. So Francesco Salsini, the person behind the YouTube channel, basically does reviews of lower-end handhelds that come with built-in games. He's done over 200 videos reviewing these handhelds. That is until his house was searched by customs enforcement officers. He was subsequently charged for violating copyright law, which has a potential of a fine up to $17,000 and up to 3 years in prison. When they searched his house, they confiscated over 30 handhelds and his personal phone, which was returned to him a month later. He's currently trying to raise money to pay for a lawyer to fight the case. He's still not 100% sure why he's being charged since he just purchased the handhelds and reviewed them. But it's a weird situation considering it's fairly common in the US for people to buy and review these type of handhelds. I get there are games of questionable legality on these handhelds, but it's not like the person that's buying it preloaded the games on it. So it seems like the company behind the handheld should be the one getting in trouble. The only thing I can think is maybe because he's profiting off the videos about them. That's why the Italian government is targeting him. But according to some of the articles I read, Italian law enforcement doesn't have to give him an exact reason for the charges until their investigation is concluded. We'll see how this whole thing turns out, but this case is kind of interesting. Now, of course, Italy isn't alone in cracking down on piracy, as last week we talked about the FBI seizing a Nintendo Switch ROM site, but there wasn't much information about why this happened at the time. Well, the FBI has since put out a statement about it. So the FBI announced that they're seizing several online criminal marketplaces. So NSW2U was the one that broke news last week, but it seems like they're generally going after these type of sites now. And speaking of NSW2U, they claim that they saw 3.2 million downloads in 3 months from February 28th to May 28th, resulting in a loss of $170 million in revenue. They also mentioned that they work with the Fiscal Information and Investigation Service in the Netherlands to seize the domain, and they also seized several other domains as a result. So this does help clear up some of my confusion from last week, because I was like, why is the FBI getting involved? But the big thing that cleared it up for me was them mentioning the potential $170 million loss, aka potential tax money that would have gone partially to the government if people paid for these games. So yeah, it makes sense. They was after that money. But of course, government agencies aren't the only ones cracking down on piracy, as legendary pirate fighter Nintendo is back in the news again, partially for the wrong reasons. And that's what we're talking about today. And a fun story. So we recently talked about Nintendo banning Switch 2 consoles from online services for the use of MIG cards, which can load ROMs of Switch 1 games. Well, a person found themselves banned from Switch online services after buying some used games on Facebook Marketplace. So this person bought some Switch 1 games on Facebook, not realizing there were copies of the games, and of course they played them on their Switch 2, only to find that their console had been banned from online service. They contacted Nintendo support, who were initially refusing to unban the console, which is not surprising, but the user ended up showing proof of the Facebook Marketplace listing, as well as the conversation with the seller, and proof that they had now purchased legit versions of the games, and Nintendo finally reversed the ban on the console. I mean, it's good that they reversed the ban, and I understand them wanting to crack down on piracy since the Switch 1 got cracked open fairly early, but there isn't such thing as going too far and punishing people who are trying to legitimately play games on your console. I mentioned before that people who get banned are probably going to try to sell their system off to unsuspecting people that don't understand that the console is banned from online services, which of course has already happened. And then there's this whole situation where someone bought a used game and it ended up being a bootleg. Like I said, yes, this person did get their console unbanned eventually, but they had to jump through a bunch of hoops with Nintendo in order to do so. So I'm sure this isn't something that Nintendo plans to do regularly if someone happens to get tricked into buying a banned console or happens to buy a copied game. So personally, I think this tactic is a bit too aggressive and is going to result in more regular users being affected. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think that Nintendo needs to change the way that they're handling piracy on their console? And again, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification button thing to be notified when I drop a video or a live stream. And always do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.